Good evening. It is Thursday evening, 8 p.m. This is the Living in Utah live question and answer that I hold every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. It's an opportunity. You're welcome to ask any kind of questions you have, real estate, state of Utah. Maybe you're viewing from around the world and you've got questions about where to get a driver's license, et cetera, et cetera. By all means, go ahead and shoot me those questions, and we will talk about them. I've got a couple things to talk about tonight. One thing about tourism in Utah. There were some statistics that came out about how Utah did last year at some of their national parks. So, been a great time in Utah this week. The last 2 days have been 60-degree days. I think spring is arriving. So I'm going to call it now. Spring is arriving. It's a tough time of year. I really enjoy it. One of my friends runs one of the ski resorts, and he was on the phone with me yesterday. He's like, Mike, come skiing. But on the other side, I'm thinking, no, I want to go golfing. So it was a tough decision, and I ended up going golfing, did not go skiing, but I'm probably going to take him up on the skiing offer in the next day or two. We'll see how it goes. So I'm sure he'll be on the phone again. But it's been great days, beautiful, beautiful days. I would imagine that I probably won't have anybody from Utah on tonight. They probably have been outside today enjoying the weather. So yeah, if you want to go hiking, mountain biking, whatever outside, it was perfect day last 2 days. So, and it's supposed to be that way through the weekend. We're getting a little bit of a minor storm come through, and the weather person said that it'll probably be just a little drizzle this weekend, probably like Saturday evening is the latest that I have heard. So, very, very good. So yeah, by all means, load your questions. I've got all kinds of stuff going on. I made some notes. So glad it is finally warming up. Yes, I agree. It's beautiful. Ever sold a house in Harriman, Utah? Yes, Harriman's a great area. Great area. So just follow up. Last week, somebody asked me about place to go for chicken, and someone sent me an email. So on a recommendation on a new place in Farmington Station in Farmington, Utah, called Sticky Bird Red Barn Chicken. I have not eaten there personally, but they said it was really good. It's supposed to be located next to the Cabela's, and I've been there, and I guess I didn't really notice anything, but it is a new business. They said that is a great place to go for chicken. So add that to the list. As far as other news in Utah, still battling the COVID front, but I think Utah is doing a great job. They starting this last Monday, people with certain medical conditions and people age 60 and above were eligible to receive a vaccine. The governor just came out today, and he is lowering it to anyone over the age of 50. And people over the age of 16 with certain medical conditions, which they added to their list of medical conditions to include diabetes, type 1 and 2, and a couple other medical conditions. So that starts next Monday. So good. I think it's great news. I personally just had my COVID shot this week. So I got the Pfizer shot, first dosage, on Monday evening. And if anybody is on the fence about having it done, I had no problems, no real problems. I actually didn't even know, I felt the injection a little bit, and then he was putting a Band-Aid on, and I thought I didn't receive anything at all. It was that easy. The only side effect that I had was a headache, and I took some ibuprofen and Tylenol combination, gone. So no other side effects so far. We'll see on dose number 2. But I think it's doing good. There's actually a lot of COVID news in Utah right now. There is a bill going through the state legislature on an exit plan for COVID with some of the restrictions that they've placed. And it looks like it'll probably pass. They're finalizing the bill, the last I heard. But basically, if we get, I think it was like 1.6 million vaccinations out there. ICU rates drop below a certain level. They're going to start exiting the COVID mandates. The governor actually stated last week that he is anticipating July 4th. He is going to go to a July 4th parade with no mask, and he's going to throw it in a bonfire. So that's how confident he is that we will not be under like a mask mandate and restrictions come by July the 4th. So great news. I'm all for that. So we've got that bill in the state legislature, and we're doing people under age of 50. All good news. So, and I'm not too sure how other states are doing with the COVID program. Pretty much just hear news about the Utah COVID program. So I think it's going fantastic. If we are doing over the age of 50 come next Monday, I would imagine in a couple weeks they're going to drop that age again. So pretty much open it up to probably all ages by sometime in the near future, which that'd be great. That'd be great if we could. Really good, especially when we had a scare 2 or 3 weeks ago. You heard about various strains that were coming from Africa and from England and places like that, and they were super spreaders, and so I was a little nervous back then, thinking, oh, here we go, a whole new wave. So not the case, not so far anyways. So, and I did hear a statistic. So this is the other thing they're monitoring in Utah, is between the amount of people who have received the vaccination and the people who already have had the COVID, we are at about 40% of our population in Utah. So, and that's probably a little bit higher now. That statistic was about a week ago. So, and we actually in Utah just received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the new one that's out. So I know the IHC hospitals have it. They received a dosage, and the University of Utah hospital. So one more vaccine to start making the rounds. So state of Utah tourism last year during COVID was down. So they estimated that 7.77 million visitors to our 5 national parks that we have, which is 2.9 million visitors short of what they normally get. So, but when you dig into the numbers, it's actually not as bad as that. Last spring, they actually shut the national parks. When COVID first hit, shortly after, they shut the national parks, so there was no visitors. They reopened them a few months later. And I'm not too sure why. I have my own reasons. I think it's because they saw that, I think in general, the state of Utah noticed huge revenue drops with fuel tax, sales tax, national parks, all revenue that they collect. I think they saw a little bit of a dip, and so they opened the national parks back up. So with the national parks open back up, when you look at the numbers a little closer, Arches National Park had 80,000 more visitors in October, November, and December of 2020 than they did in 2019 during that same time period. So they saw an increase during 3 months there, making up for some of it. And Canyonlands had 55,000 more visitors. So hello from Southern California. I've talked to you a couple times. How is your COVID doing out there? How's the COVID situation going in California? I hear you're still on lockdown, some lockdowns. I heard they have eased some of the lockdowns, but I'd love to find out how it's going in California with like the COVID. We are open for business in the state of Utah. Everything is open. We do have a mask mandate, so yes, lockdown, but most people don't listen. Yeah, I would imagine that my guess is that it's with a lockdown, it gets old after a certain time, and then people will break the habit. I talked to somebody from the UK, and as in United Kingdom, their lockdown is due to end in June. Some things are opening up. I believe they told me like hairdressers can open up like end of March, but they've been on lockdown since December. That's brutal. Hi from Austin, Texas. What is the property tax percentage in Utah? Gotcha. I know I know in Texas that you have percentages. I've heard of that. In Utah, we don't have like a I guess per se a set percentage. The way they do it in Utah is it does vary county by county. So there's a lot that goes into the property tax, from schools to police and fire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as the list goes down. And each department takes a little chunk, little chunk, little chunk. I can tell you that if you compared Utah to Texas, our property taxes are probably a quarter of what you would pay in like Texas, as that I hear in general. I've heard people in Texas tell me $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 can be a norm per year. At where in Utah, my particular home, mine's about $2,500 a year. So. What's your opinion on California? On the lockdowns or California in general? I mean, I love California. We vacation in California. Before the pandemic, we always vacation. We're horse lovers, so we've been to Santa Anita, Del Mar. We catch the big races, and we love California. We love our trips to Southern California, Northern California. We love San Diego. We love to visit. So I love California. It's a place that, when it comes to actually living there, I don't know if I could afford to live in California, quite honestly. Not the lifestyle that I live here. I don't think I could afford that in California. So, and I have looked at California. So I have a vacation home in Las Vegas. And a few years ago, we looked at selling it and possibly moving it to California. So we love Southern California a lot, but there wasn't anywhere we could really afford. We were looking in the Arcadia area out by Santa Anita, but at the time we would have had to come up about $700,000-$800,000 to purchase a home there. And so we went out to Palm Springs and Desert Springs? Palm Springs, and I think it's Desert Springs. Because homes were more affordable out there, and we found out why that was. We left LAX, and I think it took me over 3 hours to arrive in Palm Springs. I'm like, wow, this place is quite the distance out there. So we actually visited some people out there. We were on vacation in Ireland, and we met some people that lived in Palm Springs. So they said, come on out and have a look. So we went for 2 reasons, and we liked it out there in Palm Springs. But no, we stuck with Las Vegas. So. Newsom is not well liked. Yes. Yeah, I hear that from the news. And I hear there's a ballot that they're trying to remove Governor Newsom. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Living in Utah, we kind of see both sides of it. And we see the California on lockdown and Florida wide open. And I'm just taking a wild guess here, but probably the COVID cases throughout the time is probably about the same in the 2 states. So, yeah, it's different. So, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people are leaving California and New York. I get a lot of calls from New York and California, and a lot of people are looking at moving out, and a lot of it has done with the COVID. So, is there a big Asian market in Utah? I am looking to move in Utah after watching all your video. Thank you so much. Asian market as in people that are here, or Asian market as in food store? There is a big Asian market food store in Roy, Utah. They took over an Albertsons building and have the place packed solid. People come from all over the state to shop there. It's called Ocean Mart. The taxes are insane. Yes, yes. And it's not just the taxes. So a good friend of mine lived in San Diego, born and raised by LAX airport, lived in San Diego his whole life, about the same age as I am. They're in the monster truck business. So they crush cars and do all that. And I've known him for years, and they've done shows in Utah. And he had always told me I couldn't live in Utah, the winters, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he has left California and moved to Utah, and actually just crossed the border in Idaho. He bought a 20-acre dairy farm. He wanted to put his business and his home all in one. But when we've talked about the differences, he said, Mike, it's not just like the property tax and the state income tax and the sales tax. He goes, it's the small things that you don't notice. Gas right here is about $2.60 a gallon. I think in California, it's probably $4. So he goes, every time you fill up your vehicle, it's another $20. You go to the grocery store, it's another $20 in California. Everywhere you go, you're spending another $20, $30. The truck that he owns is very similar to my truck. His is actually a 1-ton. It's a dually, so it's worth a little bit more money. So it's not apples to apples 100%. But he told me in San Diego, it costs him $750 a year to register that truck. My truck, I believe, is like $150, $160, $170. And so he goes, there's the difference. Everywhere you go, everything you do, it's another $20 here, $20 there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it adds up. It adds up. So, but they're real happy living out here and in this area where they're actually technically just crossed the border in Idaho. Talk to them all the time. They're having absolutely fantastic times. So they do go back to California. He does shows down there and stuff. So he does get to go back. But it's good. So the taxes are insane. Yeah, it's just a little bit of everything. And the state of Utah, I am noticing more and more retirees in the state of Utah. And we do not rank on a lot of the lists. Our neighboring state of Nevada is really high on the list because they have no state income tax. State of Utah does, where it's just below 5%. It's kind of a flat tax, you might want to call it. But we are noticing more and more people coming to Utah to retire. And I think the number one reason is that they want an active lifestyle in their retirement years. And they want a safe community, low crime rate, active lifestyle. And that's what attracts them here. There's so much to do with outdoor recreation, et cetera, et cetera. And, our crime statistics throughout the whole state of Utah is way lower than the national average. We do have crime here, but not like a lot of states have. So it attracts a lot of retirees, As a matter of fact, there's a lot of communities being built. The over 55 communities are being built. So, and, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it was hard to find one, but not now. So we are seeing a lot of retirees. So great. Any more questions this evening? Yes. And I think personally, in 2021 and 2022, we are going to see the biggest percentage of people moving locations, whether it's Utah, Texas, Florida, with people being able to work remotely. I think it's a whole new ball game. So people are going to move. So, and where they go, I can probably tell you some of the states they will probably leave, but some of them that are filling up, it's not just Utah, but Arizona, Utah, Idaho, especially the Boise area. Texas is on fire too. A lot of people moving there, and Florida. A lot of people moving to Florida. So You got to help me find an acre lot near a creek. I'd like to get something in the next 5 years. Yes. So acre lot near a creek is a little tough, little bit tough. The one thing about trying to buy land next to a creek that you have to be careful with is the wetlands. So, and anytime you're dealing with potential wetlands or wetland, there is a lot that has to be done. You have to get a delineation report done by an engineer. They have to determine, is it wetlands, not wetlands, what can be done, what can't be done. And I was actually involved in that about a year ago on a piece of land. It was a 5-acre piece of property. And we looked at the property and we noticed water on the property. And I said, if you're going to move forward on this, we're going to have to look into the wetland issue. So the report was done, and a little bit of bad luck. Out of the 5 acres, it was narrow and really deep. The front, approximately 2 acres, the whole front was deemed wetlands. There was literally nothing we could do. The engineers looked at it for quite a while, apart from maybe like build a bridge over that to get back to the rear of the property where your house is. There was some next door, there was some property that if you would have purchased part of his property, you could have had access and kind of went around the wetlands. But the individual in that spot was not willing to sell it. So, yeah, it's in engineers, everything. Can you speak about Daybreak Community? Okay. So, and I'm not sure if you're referring to some of the lawsuits that have been filed about the Daybreak Community or just the Daybreak Community in general. But what I will say is if you are looking at the Daybreak Community, take a look at Google some of the lawsuits that have been filed with the community out there, and become a little bit educated on where some of the potential lawsuits are and will be in the future. So there has been some issues there I would look into. So I moved from Southern California to Austin, Texas. Now it's getting crazy over here in Austin with property taxes and homeless people camping out in front of businesses. How is the housing market? Well, the housing market in Utah is just as busy as Texas. I've got a lot of friends in Texas, and we talk all the time. And whether it's Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, I know what the real estate market is in those areas, and it's as crazy as Utah. So we do not. Then that's the first I've heard about homeless people camping out in front of businesses. I didn't know that was going on in Texas. I do know in some Northwest cities where I've experienced that. I've actually been in some of those cities where that has been allowed, but I didn't know that was going on in Texas. I haven't seen it in Utah. So the homeless situation in Utah has improved, and I'm not too sure where some of them have moved to, but we had areas of Salt Lake City that very similar, large homeless population, a lot of drug dealing going on, vandalism, businesses being broken into. Well, a lot of the police forces got together and they stamped it all out, made them all move, and they've been patrolling it day after day and not allowing anybody to come back. So it has cleaned up a lot in downtown Salt Lake City here. Where those people are now, I'm not too sure if they moved to another state or we're getting smaller numbers in some other neighboring cities to Salt Lake City. But they took some action here in Utah about it. So, yeah, there was a lot of complaints in a certain area of Salt Lake City, and so they clamped down on it a little. Great. See. But yeah, as far as finding that's the one thing about finding a lot near a creek. So I would is sometimes with some of the wetlands. The other thing is makes it tough finding is, so when we're talking about southern Utah, there isn't as many opportunities as per se in some of the populated areas. But when you get to our rural areas, you can find some locations like that, like Panquitch, Vernal, Delta, places like that. You can find some. In our far southern area where it's more desert landscape, you do not see as many opportunities for like an acre property on a creek. When you get into northern Utah, it's a little bit more restricted too. Even some of the rural communities this happens in, but the water rights to some of them, some of the land is not sold because farmers use it for irrigation. So they're not willing a lot of times to sell land that is next to a river or a creek if they are using it for irrigation water. They'll keep that land. And sometimes you'll find that they might have water rights where they're actually, they built pipes underground all the way to hundreds of feet down the road to other fields that they own. So for them to actually sell that land, they would lose their water and their ability to grow crops. So, and my relatives in Idaho are farmers, so I know a little bit about that, and that's how we get our water. Part of my father-in-law's property is on the river, and his pump is located down there, and it feeds all his fields from that one source, all the pivots that go. So for him to sell the riverfront property, you could not farm the land. You'd have to farm it as dry farm and not irrigated farm. So, and that happens here in Utah too. So some of them properties are a little bit tougher to come across. So from Southern California to Austin, Texas. Great, great. Yes, the whole state of Texas, or a large part of Texas, is seeing vast amounts of growth. So, vast amounts of growth. Yeah. Californians, people from Florida, people from the northern states, Wisconsin, Chicago. I hear about a lot of people moving out of those areas to areas like Texas. And so, but, and I don't know how Texas is doing with, I know the population's growing down there, but is some of it through retirees? Because at one point they had a hard time attracting retirees to the state of Texas because of the high property taxes was one of the things down there when I would talk to people. It was not a real big like retirement area for people moving in as far as retirees. So I guess as a retiree, you try to keep some of your bills down. And if you're spending a lot of money on property taxes, and it might not be as attractive of an area. So any more questions this evening? Maybe we will wrap up here. Can we find something in the 300s in Utah with good school ratings? If you do find something in the 300s with a good school rating, my guess is you would be in the high 300s. You'd probably be touching 4 in general. And I'm speaking about northern Utah and also areas like southern Utah, like the St. George market also. So now if we're talking rural Utah, then it's a little bit different. So rural Utah right now, areas like Vernal, anywhere, a lot of those areas are dependent on the oil and gas drilling that goes on. And right now in Utah, there is a lot of controversy of what's going to happen in a lot of those towns. The current administration is putting a ban on leases in oil and gas, which will affect those rural cities that depend on jobs and everything that goes with it. So, property taxes in Texas are high due to no income taxes. Correct. Correct. Yeah, it is a no income state tax. I do believe, though, they do have a sales tax in Texas, but no income tax. Yeah. So, yes. I know that some people get a little bit shocked on Texas. I've got friends that are real estate agents in Texas, and people see homes listed for $300,000 and $400,000, and then they don't realize what the property tax costs on top of that. So, the feds own a lot of land in Utah. That is correct. Yes, there is a lot of federal land in Utah. Very, very true. Very, very true. And that's where some of the dilemma is happening right now. And I'm not too sure what's going to happen, but areas like Vernal, they've already been hit from time to time. You know, the oil and gas industry is an up and down industry through time. And it's definitely communities where they've had ups and downs too. There's times where you can't rent a place or buy a place, and other times where there's a lot of real estate for rent and to buy. And the future in some of the rural areas does not look good. And we're not the only state with that. South Dakota is a very, very big area for the oil fracking that they do. I know people who live in Utah that drive all the way to South Dakota to work. The state of Wyoming will be affected by anything done in South Dakota. There's a lot of people living in Wyoming that work in South Dakota at the oil plants and oil rigs. So whether you're transporting oil or the whole town, very, very good paying jobs. That's why people will drive all the way from Utah. I believe it's like a 2-day drive to go to work. And I think they'll work like a 10 or 14 days in a row. And then they'll have like a week off and they come back to Utah and they go back and visit their families, come back here and visit families. But that is drying up. And I've heard that it's drying up for workers in Wyoming also. So, but Vernal is an area in Utah, and there's a few other areas that we have that depend on oil and gas. So the future is unknown as to what's going to happen. But as an industry in general, I think it's going to be an industry that does wind down a little bit. We do need oil. You always need oil, like plastics have oil. A lot of things have oil besides gasoline. But as a global economy, we are going towards electric vehicles. So our dependence on fuel will diminish in many, many years going down the road here. So great. Any more questions this evening? We'll wrap up. Try and move back to the valley. Hi, trying to move back to the valley in which valley would that be? Salt Lake Valley, or I'm assuming like the Salt Lake Valley? Where do you currently reside? In 6 months or less, looking to rent a 3-bedroom home. Okay. So I'm assuming you've lived in Utah before. So you're Salt Lake City Valley. Yep. Sounds like you've lived in Utah before and are looking at coming back. And I would assume that you like the state of Utah then. You're in Anaheim, California. Okay. So great. I think the state of Utah, I mean, I love living here. I love doing this show. I love everything about Utah. I think it's one of the greatest places to live. So I don't know where else I would actually live. So on a full-time basis. So, but yeah. Well, welcome back to Utah if you make the move back. So I would imagine that whatever career field that you are in, you will probably be able to find a job back here in Utah. So is the air quality that bad? Well, it depends what you what you compare the air quality to. I know a lot of cities and states have air quality issues. And I'm, for one, I'm a person who, suffers on red air days. I've had asthma since I was a kid. And if we get a red air day, I feel it in my lungs. I sure do feel it in my lungs. So sometimes I'll escape to the mountains. Sometimes I try to stay in the house and not go out on a red air day. Now, with that being said, I have noticed we have fewer red air days over the last few years. This winter, I noticed very few red air days. So some of that's down to the state has been working really hard on doing cleaning up the air. And the other thing is the technology of cars has improved, so there's not as much pollution coming out of a vehicle, has helped with air quality. And the COVID issue has helped with air quality. The traffic in Utah County, Salt Lake County, Davis, I do not see the traffic like it used to be. A lot more people working from home. So that has probably all contributed to helping with the air quality. But so I see it improving, but we do have bad air days. We do. So, and I'm primarily you're looking at Salt Lake County. Probably Salt Lake County gets hit the most, and it's more populated, and that's one of the reasons. So, but you're trapped because we have mountains on both sides, so it's kind of like a bowl and with a lid on the top, so the dirty air gets trapped in. There's nowhere for it to go. But I do see some improvement. Mr. Z, checked out Mandarin Chinese restaurant yesterday. You must have watched one of my videos where I talked about the Mandarin. I think the Mandarin is the best Chinese I have eaten in my lifetime. So what's your opinion, Mr. Z? And while we're talking about that, I primarily order the chicken. I think the chicken is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I think it's a great place. They have won awards many, many times, and it's a family-run business, and it's been handed down. And I think it's a great place. Where can I look for rentals? Been using KSL, Craigslist, and other sites. Yeah, KSL is your number one. I don't know many people in Utah that use Craigslist. So KSL. There's other sites like, wow, I'm trying to think. Rentler, Trulio, but KSL is the big one, is really the big one that I know of. So what is your best advice on transitioning my employment? I'm like gainful employment prior to moving. It's been difficult getting callbacks with my resume and address being California. Well, I'm surprised to hear that. I'm very, very surprised to hear that. We are at 3.1% unemployment rate, which is probably the lowest in the country or fairly close to it. I would assume that employers would be, there's a shortage in a lot of career fields. I hear about it all the time. But I'm a little surprised on that. I talked to a lady that is moving to Utah, and they are in, wow, I don't know what country they were from. I think they were from Poland. They'd never been to the United States, and her husband got a job in Utah, and they did it all via Zoom. So, and they don't live in the country. So California sucks. It's hell. Nick, that's an understatement. I work full-time, pay taxes so high, I might as well quit. And I hear that a lot. And that's, I love visiting California. but the lifestyle that I live in Utah, I don't think I could live the lifestyle I live in California. So it's, but yeah, it's a state that's is known for its high taxes and certain political views too. So, but yeah, but yeah, if so, you know, my thing, and I'm not too sure what sort of career field you are looking for, but Utah is doing some virtual job fairs I've heard about. And the other place of employment I would look into would be defense contractors. So they are growing and expanding like crazy in Utah. There's with Hill Air Force Base and the support on Hill Air Force Base, what's needed for support over the years and the future is just growing and growing and growing. So that's one area I would look at, and the other area would be anything in the tech field. So there's a stack of companies in the tech industry that seem to always be hiring. So that's a couple areas I would take a look at. I'll keep plugging away at the job field. That gives me hope. Yeah, I think it was just announced we're 3.1% unemployment. So it's my wife is looking for work in the school districts in administration work as she does that here. Well, and I'm not too sure about the administration work, but I know that seems like they're always hiring for teachers. So I have many hats in job fields, mostly customer service. I have a bit of a hiccup in my background getting clearance for jobs. Okay. Yeah, clearance for jobs might be a little bit tough for like a government contractor, I would imagine, or maybe with some. I guess depends on what you actually do for a government contractor. I'm not 100% certain what they would look for on a background clearance, but yeah, try some of them. And the other areas that I would look for is you're seeing it happen up in the Ogden area, in the Business Depot in Ogden. There's a lot of smaller companies that aren't like your big name companies, not the Apples or the Googles, et cetera, that have moved in. I would try some of them. We just had one open up that does something to do with COVID testing. They had a location like in Virginia. They're bringing they're going to hire 500 people for job in Utah. They just rented like a 70,000 square foot building. So there's companies like that. And there's some smaller tech companies that have moved also into that Business Depot, either in the Freeport Center one in Clearfield, Utah, or the one in Ogden. And they're not the big companies that you're used to, the Googles and the Facebook and that you're familiar with. They're the smaller tech companies. And I don't mean small as in like a 1 or 2 man shop. They probably have a few hundred employees. They maybe not thousands of employees, but some of those companies usually look for help too. And anything in the outdoor industry. So a lot of companies have moved here that are in the outdoor industry, whether it's hiking, biking, winter sports, skiing, snowboarding. A lot of those companies are moving here, and you can look for jobs through some of them. I get caught and everyone says equal opportunity, and then so being honest with my background, get the job and then rescind offers. It's been discouraging, but like I said, I'll keep trying. Okay. Mr. Z, I know that Northrop Grumman is hiring 40 people a month until next year. You need a secret clearance there. So, yeah, I guess the Northrop Grumman, you would need a secret clearance. So, but, 40 people a month for just one company I think is staggering. So that's 480 people a year for one company. But yeah, I would try some of those other companies like that. Some of them other industries that are little less talked about, but are here in Utah. So, and then there's government jobs. So, and so the IRS is very big in the Ogden area, Hill Air Force Base, with civilian jobs at Hill Air Force Base. And there's also like the state of Utah and all the counties also hire. So, but there's a lot of, with the COVID, there's a lot of virtual job fairs. I'm not 100% certain on how they work, but there's definitely a labor shortage in Utah. I hear it all the time. And the other area you may consider too, with some of your experience, would be anything in the construction field. So maybe in management of construction or something like that would be, very, you can look along those lines too. So thank you. I will definitely be subscribing. Well, thank you. Thank you. Hope you make it back to Utah then. So from California, if it's been a while since you've been back to Utah, you might have to buy some ibuprofen. Your neck might get a little sore with all the new construction buildings that are going on in every county. I'm amazed. I don't go to certain areas for maybe 6 months, and then I can't stop all the new construction, where it's commercial, residential, etc. It is popping up everywhere. Apartment buildings. It's staggering. So it's always a topic of conversation when I meet friends. I'm like, did you notice this? Did you notice that? And like I just mentioned about this chicken place that's supposed to be next to Cabela's. I've been down there many times, and it'd be new to me. So it's already in progress. Great. Thank you. Yeah, it's the growth in Utah is, for someone who hasn't been here for a little bit, is can be a little bit overwhelming. We just visited in December and it was so different. Yeah. You'll get a sore neck just looking at everything. It's astonishing. And what gets me sometimes is I try to remember what used to be there before they built, because they sometimes tear down businesses and they'll build apartment complex or a new sky-rise building. And I'm like, I can't remember what was there before. So, and I just saw one. So right next to, in downtown Salt Lake City, I parked outside of the federal building, right downtown there. And they're building this huge skyscraper in the middle of COVID. And they were working, it was a Saturday when I was there, and they were working on Saturday, must be behind schedule a little bit or something, but it's multi-story office building, commercial office building. And I just kept thinking, during COVID, they keep talking about how commercial space is not being utilized and people are not renting as much, and they are still constructing this building. So it will be a shock for my wife. Watching her go through her first winter will be fun to watch her acclimate. So I'm assuming she must be from California, not been to Utah before. Yes, definitely. If you're used to Southern California, winters in Utah do take some time to get used to. So, like I said, my best friend, out of San Diego, and they spent their first winter, and I'm constantly asking him, how's it going? He's like, I'm okay. He says, I'm totally fine. So, but they're having a blast. They're living a different lifestyle. So his son is probably about 19 years old, just bought a UTV, and he's out having time of his life. And he didn't have that opportunity in San Diego. So he could have bought a machine, but he would have had to store it somewhere and trailer it to a recreational area to ride it. And literally they drive off their property. It's street legal, can legally drive it down the road to off-road sites and everything. They're just having a blast. So If you don't mind, can you share where? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost on the, if I get a little bit better explanation on that, on share where. I might have got lost on what your original question was. Oh, sorry, typo. If you don't mind, can you share where you are living, neighborhood, community? I'm looking for different areas, housing pricing, location. So I've lived in a lot of areas. I have lived in a lot of areas in Utah. So I currently live in a city called West Haven. It's a small city. A lot of people have not heard of the city I live in. The city is actually small enough we do not have a police force. They pay the local sheriff. The city pays the local sheriff to patrol the area. And the sheriff basically just takes like calls if there's a break-in, a traffic accident, and they come out. That's what the police force does. So it's a real small community. There's a lot of farmland, some is being taken up because more homes are being built. It's a growing area. So, but yeah, it's a small community, and it is west. If you were looking on a map, if you look west of Ogden, Utah, is where you would find the city. So, but I've also lived in Clinton, Utah, and I've lived in Kaysville, Utah, two great cities. And what mostly attracted me to the city that I'm particularly in now was mostly commute for my wife. So with her career field, she spends a lot of time doing work after hours, on call, emergencies, et cetera, et cetera. So for her to be close to work was very important. And that's one of the reasons we moved to this particular city. For me, I can travel anywhere, so it didn't matter as much. Oh, Mr. Z, did you answer my question on what you thought about the Mandarin Chinese? I might have missed it. Who do you recommend for loan officer between Kaysville and Ogden? I might like West Haven. So yeah, ship me an email or something like that. But George Coleman is the man that I use. And I can get you his contact information if you would like. So, yeah, George Coleman is who I use. So, great man. I was just on the phone to him actually last night. So, where is there a 12-inch indoor pool or 12-foot indoor pool? I did. You missed it. Okay, I'll report. Mandarin was pretty good. Big portions. Got the crab and some noodle dish with chicken and Chinese sausage. So, Mr. Z, we're talking about the Mandarin. Do you feel it's the best Chinese you've eaten in Utah? That'd be my question. Best Chinese you've eaten in Utah. The closest Costco. So Costco's, as far as where I live, I'm about 5 miles away from a Costco. There is, and we're looking at the Salt Lake Valley. There's a couple Costco's in the Salt Lake Valley, and there's a Costco in Utah County. So Costco's are around. Sam's Clubs also are around. So, and the Sam's Clubs that I'm aware of, there's one in Ogden, there's one in Layton, there's one in Salt Lake City. I'm not too sure about Utah County. I would assume there is one in Utah County. But yeah, we do have Costco's and Sam's Clubs available. So they do a booming business in Utah, a booming business. Mostly it's not just Utah. So folks from Idaho come down and use Costco. Folks from Wyoming come down and use Costco. So it's shared by many states. Bountiful, yeah, best by far. I really like Phoenix Express in Stowe, Ohio. Okay, yep. Not familiar with that. I've never been there, but good. It's good to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed the Mandarin. It's a place that I enjoy. And usually if I recommend a place, it's always great that someone else does agree with me. I need to live somewhere near a Costco. Okay, so as we're looking at Utah in general, you're pretty good accessing in the 4 major counties we have here, which would be Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah County. If you lived in any of the 4 counties, you have access to a Costco within a 15, 20, 25-minute drive. So if you lived in somewhere like Logan, Utah, we do not have a Costco in Logan, Utah. Your closest would be like Ogden. You would have a 1-hour drive to get to the Costco and 1 hour back home. So need to live somewhere near Costco. Costco important. I like Costco. I actually have a membership to Costco and Sam's Club. So I enjoy both of them. So yes, but Costco and Sam's Club do a booming business here. So, and I would imagine that Costco would, I would imagine they probably have in the works a more locations. So I was actually joking with somebody about Costco just a week ago, because in Ogden, Utah, there's the Newgate Mall. Well, they haven't been paying their mortgage payments to the loan holder, and about a week ago, it went through the foreclosure auction. It was supposed to be auctioned off at the courthouse steps. So I was joking with someone, what they should do then is just gut all the stores and turn it into one big Costco. So, yeah, it was kind of funny. I heard the largest Costco is in Salt Lake City. A good possibility. Good possibility. The one right there on 13th South in Salt Lake City is a very large Costco. So, I did forget one out when I was talking Davis County. There is a Costco in Bountiful, Utah. So there is one in Davis County also. But yeah, I actually have been in the one at 13th South in Salt Lake City, and that is a large Costco. There's also one, is it 5400 South or 4500 South in Salt Lake City? I have not been to that location, so I'm not too sure on that one. But yes, I use the Ogden Costco and the Layton Sam's. Sunday is the best day to go. Yes. So I actually don't know if there is a good day to go to the Ogden Costco. I think when they designed the Ogden Costco, the parking is just a disaster. There's no way else to describe it. It's a disaster. Every time you go, you can't find a parking spot. What they were thinking of building a building where you only have parking on, I don't know, less than half of the property is, yeah, I think if you build a Costco, you've almost got to have parking all the way around. So I'm living near 2 Costcos and each about 10 minutes away from my house. I am spoiled. It's important to buy a house close by. Yes, well, that's, that's one of the criteria. It's always nice to talk to someone when they're looking for a home. Everybody has different criteria. And some people, it's like Costco is important. I have some people that want to live next to a particular golf course because they're big golfers and they want a very short commute. We've got people that live next to a ski resort. They have a season pass. And they want to ski every single day. Yes. Yeah. Or live by grandma, grandpa, or cousin, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, it's definitely. Costco does a booming business in Utah. No doubt about it. So, used by a lot of families here and a lot of people from out of state. We get a lot of out-of-state visitors. So, I hear to find a nice neighborhood, find a Whole Foods nearby. Yes, we have quite a few Whole Food stores in Utah too. Very, very popular. Very, very popular. I actually did my rounds last Sunday to Costco and Sam's Club. So it's like Costco's got some stuff and the Sam's Club's got some stuff that the others don't carry. So sometimes I have to do 2 trips. Mr. Z, you are right. Yes. Yes, Whole Food stores are very popular in Utah too. So really, I only know Whole Foods in Salt Lake City. No, you'll find Whole Foods, Riverdale, Bountiful's got Whole Foods. I do miss Trader Joe's in Southern California. We do have some Trader Joe's in Utah. The one that I can think of off the top of my head is in Salt Lake City. I want to say it's either on 4th South or 5th South for Trader Joe's. One of those 2 roads. It's the road that goes up to University of Utah. There's a Trader Joe's along that road. I actually thought, now that you mentioned Trader Joe's, that they would build more in the state of Utah, but haven't seen as many. Great. Any more questions this evening? I'm going to wrap it up. It's been 1 hour, and I'll be back next weekend. You can always send me a question via email, text, phone. You name it, we got it. Hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.